Morning, everyone. Happy Spiritual Sunday. How are you this morning? Just wonderful? What about supercalifragilisticexpialidocious? Really great. Okay. How many of you are brand new? How many of you for the first time? Anyone? All right, louder? Okay, louder. Yeah, okay, great. Okay. All right. We're on here? Okay, so let's say hello to everybody who's watching us on Kabbalah.com and on the Facebook Spiritual Sunday page. Let them hear you. I heard again from my friend in Netherlands. We have a friend in Netherlands watching us. Imagine, a couple more people from Asia. So what are we doing here today? Just in case I forgot. Okay, we have to raise our consciousness. Why do we have to raise our consciousness? What does it do for us? Remember, at the end of the day, everything we do is about how can we improve our life, is it not? Yes. Everything we've ever done is how we can improve our life. So then what's the difference to what we did before Kabbalah and after Kabbalah? Okay, consciousness. And so what? The new people saying, I didn't realize this was a quiz show. The difference is what we did before mostly didn't last very long. What we're doing afterwards, what we're doing with Kabbalah is how can we have bliss, how can we have peace, how can we have joy and happiness, peace and prosperity and love and all the good things, and how can we keep it? That's the real key. Because if we all connect ourselves to the Creator, how long does the Creator exist? Infinite. Always was, always is, and always will be. And therefore, if we can kind of tie ourselves into that power of the Creator that's in us and all around us, then how long could all our good last? Say it again so they can hear you all over the world. Forever. That's it. How many of you want forever? They're all raising their hands. I just want you to know that. Okay. All right? Because they can't see you. They can only hear. They get to see me. Okay. Yeah, exactly. That's what I say. Okay, so let's start with our affirmation. And again, what does an affirmation mean? To affirm. What does that mean, really? Okay, we can keep saying it. We can keep saying it like a parrot. Can you teach a parrot to say what we're saying? Yes. Yes, of course. So then what's the difference between them and us? Consciousness. That's what we want to keep injecting, even though we do this every week. Our true spiritual work is how can we say it with more oomph? How can we say it with more meaning? How can we say it with more energy and certainty that consciousness is everything? And that's why as we raise our consciousness, what will we tend to notice about our lives? We'll become more aware of where we're unconscious and doing things robotically, and therefore we'll become more conscious of how to raise ourselves to a higher level. And the higher level we achieve of our individual potential, not only do we have more peace and more love and more goodness, but we will also inspire and we will motivate others to do the same thing. And since every human being on earth has already been given 100% by the Creator, then all we have to do is awaken what's inside. We don't have to figure out how to get it, how to do it, how to achieve it. All we have to do is awaken the power of the Creator in us, which will awaken the power of the Creator in other people. And pretty soon we'll see everybody behaving as we're about to affirm, with greater love, kindness, and compassion. So since you and I are the more conscious, and those of you who are following us online, we are the more conscious in this moment, then let's just enhance that consciousness. One, by saying the affirmation and affirming it to dig it deeper inside of us, ingrain it in us more so we can live it more this week, but also in the power of collectivity, right? In spiritual terms, 1 and 1 is not always 2. 1 and 1 could be 5, 10, 100, 1,000, hundreds of thousands. So then a group like us and the group that are watching right now, we are, and it needs to be in our consciousness, we are equivalent to all 7.5 billion people. So what we're doing here right now and right here, we are affecting every human being on earth. And we're going to talk a little more about that in a few moments. So let's do our affirmation together. Consciousness is everything. I raise my consciousness today to see the miracles and wonders of life. I commit myself to behave with greater love, compassion, and kindness towards all human beings. And while we here in Boca are greeting each other, you online, please just type in a comment to greet each other, share where you're from, and inspire others with maybe something that's changed in your life. Since we're on a trend here, let me start with a little joke or a story. So this man has been in the psychiatric facility for about 25 years, and so his psychiatrist and he have kind of also developed a little bit of a friendship. So one day after 25 years, the psychiatrist is telling this patient, he says, you know, after 25 years, I've never taken a day off. My wife and I have planned this really great vacation. First class tickets to Mexico. We've got the first class penthouse, right? Everything just great and wonderful. Parasailing, all these amazing things, right? So he leaves, he goes on his vacation. He comes back 2 weeks later. He looks miserable. So the patient looks happy. He looks at his friend. He says, what happened? He says, you just went on vacation. He says, yeah, but you don't understand. We flew down there. It was great. But then when we arrived, they lost our luggage. Then the taxi came late. And then when we got to the hotel, they didn't have our reservation. So they put us like right next to the elevator, down in the basement. And it was rainy the whole 2 weeks. We couldn't go parasailing, couldn't enjoy the beach. It was just a miserable 2 weeks. And he looks at the patient, and the patient says, really, doc? He says, I don't understand it. He says, you know, we become so close that when you said you were going down to Acapulco, I decided I was going also. So I called my private jet. I flew down there. I had the presidential suite. I went parasailing. Everything was great and wonderful. I came back just before you got here, and I'm just happy and blissed out. And the doctor looks at him, and he starts to call in all of the orderlies. He says, come, we got to do something about this guy. He's really crazy. He's too happy. So the idea being for today is that if we're looking to have true bliss, and we want to tell people that you and I with Kabbalah, we can achieve peace and bliss and harmony and peace on earth, what will they tell you? You're crazy. That's what they'll tell us. Why? Because we're becoming happier and happier, more united. There are more people around the world learning Kabbalah now than ever in history, of every background, culture, race, nationality, even here on Sundays. Just our small piece of the Kabbalah Center. We have people all over the world, all backgrounds. We have people in the Middle East, the Muslims, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Jews, the Christian, everybody are together because this wisdom is just that. It's just universal wisdom for every human being on earth to achieve peace and harmony. Isn't that what we all want? Yes. Isn't that what we've been looking for? Yes. Isn't that what everybody else on earth is looking for? So why is there chaos in the world? If everybody's looking for the same thing, peace and joy and harmony, why is there chaos? Because many people, most of the people on earth are looking for it in different ways. They're not on the same page. And as we always talk about, we're not here to be identical to each other, but we have to work on the same operating system. Just like we do when we drive the car, right? Anyone here ever driven in London? Yes. So if somebody came from London and drove their car here in Florida, like they do in London, even though they're the best driver in London, and you have the best drivers here in Florida, what's going to happen eventually? There's going to be a crash. Not because they're not good drivers or good people or have any bad intent. They're on the opposite operating systems. So the beauty of Kabbalah is to put every human being on the same operating system. That we can use that system uniquely as the Creator gave us talents and abilities to do so, but we can do it harmoniously with the rest of the world. That's what bliss is made up of. Not everybody even essentially agreeing with each other, but at least at the end of the story, coming to a solution and working together towards that. That's why we're here. That's why nobody says in any of the Kabbalah classes or here on Sunday, you have to believe everything we say, but at least be open-minded to let it sink in, make an effort to apply it, and then see how it affects your life. So like everything else in life, if you want to achieve something, what do? You follow in one way or another those who have achieved what you want. You want success in business? Who do you follow? The failures in business or the people who have achieved long-term success? I'm not sure they're sure. right? You want to follow somebody who's succeeded at whatever it is that you want to achieve. So then if we want to achieve peace and bliss, then we need to follow the people who've achieved it, who are the great sages of history. But what allows them to do what they did and have peace and harmony and true tranquility, and you and I who would like to achieve it? What's the main difference, which is the topic for today? They understood the true secret of love. And we need to understand that secret. And why do we say it's a secret? Because not everybody has found it. Not that we're keeping it a secret, but not everybody yet has been open to understand it. So you and I are going to begin today, we're going to start understanding how those great sages could have peace. Now, unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there who don't believe it. You tell somebody, yes, some of the great sages in history, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or Moses, or Rav Shimon of the Kabbalah, they all had eternal bliss and peace. What will most people tell you? Come on, Chaim, you know the Bible is just a book written like, fables, like, Aesop's fables. It's just there to tell us morals and ethics and things like that. Can't really be real. Well, in the Kabbalah, we do believe it's real. And we do believe we can achieve it. Because as you and I come to understand that we're created by the Creator, and the Creator is perfect, then perfection can only create perfection. Can it? How can perfection create something that's imperfect? Can't. So even this world, as it looks to be chaotic, there also has to be something perfect about it. How many of you ever had pain and suffering? How many of you ever changed because of the pain and suffering to do something nicer, kinder, better, whatever? Exactly. So even though pain and suffering is not necessarily pleasant, but in the big picture of things, it's also orderly because it's leading every one of us to do something of a higher consciousness, something of a better nature of love, kindness, or compassion. So yes, there looks to be chaos, but somehow isn't it leading all of us into a greater understanding of how to be better people or how we want the world to change? Think about before 9/11. Before 9/11, how many people were just going about their own business, worried about their own life? After 9/11, suddenly there's a bigger quantum concern. People starting to realize that you can't just stay isolated here in Florida or wherever you may be and say, well, as long as my piece of environment is okay, I'm okay. No, we've come to understand the entire world is affecting the rest of the world. And this is the secret of love that those sages understood. Because as you and I learn from the first courses of Kabbalah, we go back to the endless world, the world before physicality. There was only one thing, the infinite light of the Creator. And the Creator created you and I, our soul, as a vessel, a container for its light and its perfection and its infinite fulfillment. What is the nature of that container? Called the vessel, is the desire to receive fulfillment, true infinite bliss from the light of the Creator. So when we come into this world, we have the same desire. Our soul still longs for infinite bliss from the light of the Creator. But what happened? What's the difference initially between us in the upper world and this world? In the upper world, there was just one infinite vessel, which each of us were a part of. How many of you ever seen a broken glass? So let me ask you, when the glass breaks, did the material of the glass change? Is one piece of the glass no longer glass? Maybe it turned into rubber, wood, plastic, something else. Yes or no? No. Every piece of that shattered glass is still of the material of glass. Does every piece look the same? Is every piece the same size? No. How do you know? Because you sweep it up and then 2 days later you walk by and you get that little tiny shard you didn't see in your bare foot. Right? So there was. So the Kabbalists explained to us, we are the same. When that vessel, which is our soul, shattered to come into this world, yes, we're all of the same material. So even though on a physical level we may look like we're different colors, nationalities, religions, races, backgrounds, but we're all of the same material. The infinite light of the Creator fills every human soul. And what does the soul still want in this world? Infinite bliss from the light of the Creator, because that's the only source of lasting fulfillment. Unfortunately, as we came into this world we call the world of illusion, the world of separation, we also came in with that thing we constantly learn about called the opponent. That ego voice in our head that says, no, me, myself, and I have to worry about number one, myself. And therefore, that part of us looks around and says, what? Well, there's 7.5 billion different individuals in the world. So there's the group that I love, the group that I kind of like, the group that I'm kind of familiar with, and then there's everybody else out there. So on a physical, material level, we all look like we're separate and fragmented. And therefore, it's easy for the opponent to tell us what we do to other people has no impact on us. What's going on in the rest of the world has no impact on us. But on a spiritual level, nothing changed. Because the infinite, endless world, if it's endless, it doesn't disappear. We've closed our eyes to it. It didn't run away. So we are still interconnected on a soul level. It's only our 5 senses that tell us we're separate and fragmented. So when you go back to these great sages, they understood that every human being on earth was a piece of themselves. Just like the glass. If we could reconstruct the glass, what would we need? We'd need every one of those shattered pieces. Yes or yes? Because even if you're missing that one tiny little shard, it's not a complete glass. So in order to have peace and harmony in the world, our job is to assemble more and more of that vessel of the endless. Unite more and more people in this world. And how do we do that? With that secret called love your neighbor as yourself. But here's the catch. What does it say? If you want to look it up, it's in Leviticus. You can read it for yourself. Leviticus 19, verses 17 and 18. And for those of you who are new to the center or Spiritual Sunday, the Kabbalists teach us the Bible is true. Everything that happened, happened. But that's only the tip of the iceberg, as we might say. That's only one piece of the story. The main story is the depth of understanding, what they actually changed in the cosmos for you and I thousands of years later. So we do believe, but we have to understand it Kabbalistically. So what does it say? Do not hate a fellow Israelite in your heart. And just for those, again, who are new, Israelite doesn't mean any religion. It means the spiritually minded people. Technically, every human being on earth is an Israelite because we have the light of the Creator inside of us. So don't get caught in Israel, the country, etc., etc. Just means humanity, the true essence of our being. Rebuke your neighbor. Now we get in a little trouble. Rebuke your neighbor frankly so you will not share in their guilt. Now we start to look like maybe it's a little fragmentation. Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against anyone among your people, but, and here's the thing, it's like a nothing in the Bible, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. That's the 2 verses. So this whole concept of love your neighbor as yourself, it's almost like a nothing, almost like a side comment. But if you'll go through the rest of it, what is it really saying? It's reminding us that in our soul is the light of the Creator, and in the other person is also the light of the Creator. We're of the same material. Now, if we understand that, in the physical world, what have we been doing all our life? We've been out trying to find the other pieces of our soul. How many of you feel you're completely blissed out in life, lacking nothing? Exactly. Anybody out there? Okay, no, they're the same. We all lack something. So in our lives, what do? Because we fell into this world of fragmentation called the tree of knowledge. Remember the story of the Garden of Eden? 2 trees. Tree of knowledge, tree of life. The tree of knowledge is the one most people are operating in, where there's fragmentation and separation. 7.5 billion different people, different religions, races, cultures, languages, all the fragmentation. And therefore, on the soul level, we know you and I and everyone out there are a piece of our soul. So what have we been doing? We've been out collecting the pieces of our soul. How? Well, you go to school and you assemble a small group of friends, or a large group of friends, depending. What are you really collecting? Pieces of your soul. Are your friends the people, at least back then, were the friends the people more like you or less like you? More like you. So you're collecting the pieces that you feel of your soul, looking for peace and harmony. Because you want a group of friends that do what? We all do the same thing. We like the same things. We have some harmony, some joy. We have a good time. That's it. That's what we're looking for. You go to work. You go to work to do what? Collect a piece of your fulfillment called income, support, sustenance, whatever it is. You go around collecting relationships. Well, I need to feel love, so I'm going to find somebody who will love me, and of course I'll love them also. But we're collecting pieces of our soul, is what we think we're doing. And that's why people will say, oh, I love my job. I love my friends. I love this person. I love fish. I remember one class I heard Michael Berg was saying, yes, here's a person chomping down on their fish. Oh, I love this fish. And they're eating it up and destroying it. Is that what we think love is? Right? So in that way, in the tree of knowledge, what is love? Love is when everyone or everything is making me feel good, suiting my needs. I love my job because it gives me what I want. I love my friends because they do for me what I want. I love my family, etc., because they make me feel good or do something good for me. That's the tree of knowledge. So the great sages were beyond that, because there's that other tree, the tree of life. And in the tree of life, we're unified. It goes back to the soul. In the tree of life, we know that you and I are the same. What does love your neighbor as yourself mean? It's the most difficult thing. Most people think in spirituality or religious terms, what is love your neighbor? Well, let's just start out being good and kind to people. And that's love your neighbor. No, the Kabbalists explain it's the ultimate. It's the highest and the most difficult level to reach. Because what does it mean? Love your neighbor as yourself. And the Kabbalists give us explanation. The founder of the Kabbalah Center, Rav Yehuda Ashlag, he explained, you want to know what love your neighbor as yourself really means? And therefore we'll understand how much more we have to work towards it? He gives a simple example. He says the master and the servant are traveling. And they're about to go to sleep, and the master looks in his bed, he's got a pillow. He looks at the servant doesn't have a pillow. Love your neighbor as yourself would require the master to give the pillow to the servant and go without. Love your neighbor as yourself. Everything we want for ourselves, we have to do everything in our power to make sure everyone else has it. Now it doesn't sound so easy, does it? And it's not just, as I've heard some people say, when it says love your neighbor. Okay, so we translate this side, and this side, like these neighbors, or are we talking about people from the same city, or the same culture, or the same religion? No, love your neighbor in Kabbalistic terms, everybody. Because on a soul level, who is our neighbor? Everybody. So it's love your neighbor as yourself. Connect to the light inside them, because in Kabbalistic terms, what is love? So the Kabbalists, because they were the originators of quantum physics and mathematics and all of the aspects of numerology that we call physics and math and calculus, etc., they gave us a simple understanding. The word for love in Hebrew, which is the language of the soul, Hebrew and Aramaic, is numerically 13. I know, so the first thing your opponent is telling you, yes, all your bad relationships, see 13, bad luck. No, 13 in Kabbalistic terms is good. It's very good. Love. The other word that's numerically 13 is echad, unity and oneness. So in simplest terms, even in the outside world, two people are even temporarily in love, there's a certain unity. That's what it's telling us. So true love is when you're unified with the soul of the person, Not anything on the external. Well, we go, we play tennis together, we like the same things, we do the same things, right? No, that's not it. It's connection on a soul level. And that's why these great sages were considered equal to all of humanity. And they were concerned with all of humanity because they knew the secret we're learning today. If they wanted to have their eternal bliss, they had to stay connected to the soul of every person on earth. And when you read, I don't care which great sage you read about, they all told us and acted in one way or another of loving their enemies, helping the bad people, being concerned even the good for the bad people. You and I need to take that lesson. As somebody said, maybe we should talk about the things that were going on yesterday. But as I shared the few minutes, I do a few minutes before we have this event, I do online. I shared with them, we have to extend our consciousness. We cannot just be concerned about the pain and suffering of one group or one place or one isolated incident. We usually do because it relates to something with us, whether it's our city, our country, our culture, our background, or whatever. Like we're saying here, love your neighbor means we have to feel the pain of every person on earth that's suffering. Every person on earth, including what we would call the bad people. Imagine the suffering of their soul. You and I, it's enough. We have our fear, our anger, our jealousy, a little greed, ego, etc. Our soul is suffering for that because our soul knows the perfection. So imagine people who are doing really bad stuff, what pain their soul must be going through. When we will touch and feel that pain, what do you think we'll do? What's the automatic thing every one of us do if you touch a hot stove? How long do you sit and say, who turned on the stove? Why did they do that to me? I guess it's just my punishment. Oh boy, yes, I remember now I did that to somebody else. How fast do you take your hand off that hot stove? In a microsecond when you feel the pain. So love your neighbors yourself is helping us to raise our consciousness more and more to feel more of the pain of more people. Not tomorrow we're going to feel for everybody, but let's start growing in that. Feel the pain for what you heard. And what you heard, let it translate to everybody around the world, not just those people. Because you and I here are going for the gold. We're going for removing all the pain and suffering, the angel of death forever, not just temporarily. And love your neighbor as yourself is a key ingredient of that. Because when we'll feel and access the soul of every other human being on earth, like the great sages have taught us and shown us the miracles they can create by doing it, that's when we'll start to see those same miracles. We'll see that transformation, not only of us, but everyone else. Because when you reach into the soul of another person, because it's a piece of your soul, to awaken the light of the Creator in you as you're doing it, you're awakening the light of the Creator in them. And once you turn on the light in them, what will start to disappear in their own consciousness? Their own darkness and their own negativity, their own false beliefs, their own illusion. And they'll come to see clearer and clearer the light of the Creator in them. That's what we're here to do. Raise our consciousness into a tree of life. What do we say in the affirmation? Consciousness is everything, and then I raise my consciousness. Because I want to reach the tree of life where I know everybody else on earth is a piece of me. So that I will collect my peace by doing what the Kabbalists have taught us. Act with greater love, kindness, and compassion to other people. Reach in and feel tolerance and forgiveness and care. Feel empathy for the things they're going through. Just as a reminder, doesn't mean you have to be around and hang out with everybody. So I'm not telling you have to have all the thieves and the robbers and the mean people over to your house for dinner. But you do need to reach into their soul because it's a piece of our soul. That we do. And you can do it from thousands of miles away, it's okay. Because consciousness is everything. How many times have you been what you think is in love with somebody, and every now and then you can be right next to them, and you're either wishing or feeling like you're thousands of miles away. And then there are people that you have a true soul connection with that can be thousands of miles away, and you can feel them as if they're right next to you. So it's never about the physicality. It's always about the spiritual consciousness. Are we working harder to connect constantly to the light in their soul? By raising our consciousness past the illusion of fragmentation. So whatever we hear going on in the world, We need to feel it as if it's around us. And we want to get rid of it as if it is around us, while it's not. That would be ideal. Prevention is better than cure, is it not? But in order to prevent, even in simple health terms, for people to prevent an ailment, what do they have to be thinking about, at least in a tiny level? That issue that they want to prevent. Do they not? Person has to think of flu to do something to prevent the flu. Some person has to think about cancer to do something to prevent cancer or whatever the ailment is. So yes, we have to think of what's going on in the world while we're not experiencing it, hopefully, so we can prevent it and remove it from the rest of the people. That's the mission of the center. And that's what we're capable as we will practice what Kabbalah is teaching us, which is this idea. Love your neighbor as yourself, sharing all the time. Because sharing is the nature of the Creator. Unconditional love and sharing. So we have to have that same thing towards everybody else. Unconditional love and sharing. That's all Kabbalah is teaching us. Share, 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 and share. The opponent in our head is the one that gets tired of it. You shared to somebody in the moment, in the way, in the mean you didn't feel like it. You were winning the lottery. How many times you used to say, why do I have to share? How come they don't have to share? They're not sharing. Why do I have to share if they're not? Because they're not winning the lottery. You and I are. That's what we've got to remember. The world works cause and effect. Action, reaction. Yes or yes? Exactly. So if we're sending light and we're reaching a higher level of love your neighbor and connecting the light in other people's soul, then what is the Creator metaphorically doing for us? Awakening a higher level of our soul and bringing us greater blessings and peace and protection and love and all the good things that will bring us to bliss. That's it. But I want to wind down with the biggest blockage. The most difficult thing is not really even living into love your neighbor as yourself. But it's a fact that most of us don't truly love ourselves. And I'm not talking about ego, talking about the light in us. We truly... How many of you have any guilt and shame? Guilt and shame. What does that mean? You're holding against you something. How did I do that? Why was I so stupid? How could I have done that? So many ways and means. I had so many of these examples, I just want to put them, kind of bunch them together. Because in the last few weeks, this is what I started hearing from different students. Why have they found only horrible relationships? I must have had at least 6 or 7 different students tell me in the last week or so how their relationships, they're looking back now, they're feeling the lack of a true relationship. Because if they look back, there's always something in the way. But when we really dug into it, and that's why I wanted to bring it up to you and I, it came down to somewhere along the way, they believed about themselves they're unlovable or unworthy, not good enough. So I had one student who told me about being abandoned. Her father left her when she was like 3 years old, so all she remembers is the pain. What did she take inside? Not lovable. If my father didn't love me, then nobody will love me. But since our soul pushes us to connect with everybody else who's pieces of ourselves, of course she tried to have relationships. But sometimes they would leave her, she would leave them, she'd keep at arm's distance, etc., etc. And then when they all broke up, what is she feeling? Even worse again. Because now look what happened. But it's paradoxical. Inside she's feeling unlovable. She's saying to herself, nobody will love her. And then when they run away from her, she pushes them away. Now she's upset. This is how the opponent adds to it. Adds to it. Other things go on. People have negative experiences, etc. They feel they're not worthy. At one point, I know a number of people. Again, it's all coming out now these last few years, and we'll see it the next year. People who had and lost it. I know a few people, millions of dollars. One guy told me at one point he had $1 million cash in a safe in his house. Business doing multi-millions. Almost overnight, boom, the whole thing fell apart. And in order to keep his employees going and try and get the business, he'd take the money out of the safe, money out of the safe, money out of the safe, money out of the safe. Guess what? Till he had nothing. Now, do you think he's able to say to himself, well, I'm still filled with the light of the Creator? No, he started to take himself to task. What an idiot. He had $1 million. Okay, at least save that. You follow how it works. You and I can translate the same way. I had this, I did this, I should have done that. I remember in college, I used to look back with big regret. I wish I listened to my parents when they told me to practice the piano. Because I regretted not being able to play the piano. Why? Because in college, everything was social, at least back then. At least in my experience, okay. So, there are people playing guitar and people playing the piano, and of course, everybody's gathering around them. So my opponent telling me, you want that. And what happened? You should have listened to your parents. You didn't listen. You didn't practice, all those things. So we all will take ourselves to task for different things. How we treated our kids, what we did, how we treated our friends, the business we ran, whatever it may be. We don't love the light in ourselves. And if the rule is, love your neighbor as yourself, then when we, or to the extent we can't see the light in us, because of all the illusion, then we can't see more light in them. Or then we'll be equal. Well, if I can beat myself up for what I did, then of course I have to beat them up and judge them also. Well, that's fragmentation and separation. What do we say here? I brought it. This is one of the new ones. I have a student who makes these for us. I am a pure and perfect being of light. I am a pure and perfect being of light. Can you say that? Come on, I hear them louder from out there. Say it again. Exactly. And the more we remind ourselves, I'm not saying we didn't do the mistakes, but how many of you ever ate on a ceramic dish, meaning not plastic disposable? You ever ate on a dish? I'm worried not everybody's raising their hand. So you wash, what do you do with the dish? You eat on it, it gets dirty, right? So now, do you see the pure dish? You bought the most expensive gold-lined dish. You eat on it. Does it look the same? No, now it looks impure. But do you and I know that the pure dish is still there? Yes. So how do you reveal the purity? You wash it. So it's not we haven't made mistakes, but as we will love the light inside of us, and we will learn Kabbalistically how to wash away our negativity, we're revealing again the pure and perfect light beingness. And that's why we've got to keep reminding ourselves, because our opponent will make us believe, no. Once we did the nasty thing, the rotten thing, the self-centered thing, we're dirty and that's it. Eternal sin. No such thing, because the only eternal force is the light of the Creator, perfection. So the only eternal force in this world, in that world, in any person, is the light of the Creator. So we may be living in a piece of hell in some part of our life, but as we will raise our consciousness and we will learn to wash away our negativity, we can only wash it away. That's why we want to keep in mind, the light in me is the light in you, and love your neighbor as yourself. So the only way I can wash away my dirt and get rid of my hell is when I love the light in me by loving the light in you. And doing the actions of love and kindness and compassion and tolerance and forgiveness for every person that I will meet anywhere and any time. Then we will wash away the chaos. And then we will remove all the separation and the fragmentation. And we'll be able to remove from every one of our thoughts and their thoughts anything that says, no, I've got to get rid of them. I've got to compete with them. I've got to push them away. I've got to take from them, because then that's when I will have peace and harmony. So I want to leave you with this thought. If we want peace and harmony in the world and we want to get rid of our hell, then the only thing we can do is love the hell out of them so we can reveal the light of heaven in us and them. God bless. Whew. Thank you. Somebody once asked me, he says, I have these notes, I prepare certain things, and because of the group, because of the people, new things come to my mind. So I have to attribute to you and the people who are watching, many of the things that come through me are coming because of your desire. And that's why this is so valuable and important, and the center is doing what it's doing to bring this wisdom everywhere. Because the more people we collect on this, in this consciousness, the faster we can remove all the pain and suffering. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. So, it's letting people know what goes on here. It's encouraging people as you've changed your life to ask them or share with them the change in your life so that they'll also want to come and learn and change their life. If you're watching online, just go online, just push share. That's all I'm asking. Just share it around the world. The right people will get it, and the right people will share it with the right people. But the more we influence the world just with the light, even if they're not learning yet, they're not coming here, but like you and I, 35 years ago, I wasn't coming to Kabbalah Center, but 32 years ago, I found it. Whatever it was, a year, 2 years, some of you a few months, you weren't coming here either, but you were ready for it. And it's because the sign outside, somebody mentioned it to you, somehow it was shared that you became aware. And that's all we're asking of people. Just turn around and pay it forward. Let somebody else know. Put on your Facebook page, go to Kabbalah.com, watch Spiritual Sunday, whatever it is, forward the videos. Let other people decide for themselves whether this is for them or not. That's all we're asking. Not to twist, coerce anybody or whatever, just share it with them. That's it. Share the light. Number one, we get more light. Number two, we're changing our world, and eventually we'll change the entire world. All right? Okay. For those of you who are new, what we do at this time, it is a free will offering. We are a charitable organization. We only exist by your support, and those of you who are watching. So we always take these few moments because consciousness is everything. To put our light and our love and our blessing, our consciousness into the offering, into the gift that you share with the center to expand our projects. And I just have to share this because this gentleman came this week, made sure, because he watches us and sometimes he makes it here to Boca, he wanted me to share this story. He gave his wife one of these to put in their car, right? He has a car, she has a car, wanted to make sure one of these books of the Zohar was in her car. So she put it in there. Apparently this was a short time later. And she wrote, I was driving here on Yamato Road towards the east. I was stopped at a red light, and when I looked in the mirror, I saw a car speeding for me, behind me. The first thing I thought was the car was going to hit me in the back, so she started to brace herself, and she says, all of a sudden, just a few feet away, the car switched lanes and didn't hit her. So she writes here, thank God my husband gave me the Zohar. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So those are the kinds of stories that we see, because as we'll do with our meditation after this, the Zohar just radiates the light of the Creator. So those of you who don't have one, inquire outside, ask some of the other people. But this ultimately is the most important mission that we've got. By spreading the Zohar around the world, letting the infinite light of the Creator shine brighter, it hacks into the soul, not only of you and I, but of every person on earth. And once you activate the light of the Creator inside, what starts to happen? More light, love, peace, kindness, etc. And so this is all it takes. My teachers have often said over the past 25 years that I've been around, we have the solution for peace on earth. We just need the support. Out there, they've got all the money and all the resources. They don't have the solution. Not yet. They haven't come to that consciousness. So that's the blessing of having you with us and your support. So let's just hold your offering in your hands. We'll take a minute. Those of you who are watching, please be with us. And then you're welcome to go online and make your offering. Just holding your hands because we know that money is a vessel. And like any vessel, it will only pour out. It will only share that which we put in. So we want to inject our love, our light, our kindness, especially today as we understand in a higher level the idea of love your neighbor as yourself, that the peace and the protection and the bliss that we want, we can now do what we're able to make sure others have the same. So with gratitude for all our talents and abilities and all our resources, we send this gift out into the world, spreading the Zohar and Kabbalah to bring unity, peace, and love to every person on earth. And we know as we send it out, the Creator will send it back to us many times over. And we open our eyes and we say, Amen. So let's wish all our friends who are online a great week. Let them hear you. Happy week. Have a great week. Thank you for joining us.